Hi, I hope you can hear me. I'm having some trouble with my computer today, so if we get cut off or if there's a pause, I will be doing some little pauses here and there just to take care of some of my Saturday work. But basically, I'm just doing this as a way to remind people today is um, a time to talk about elections. And I do think it is good for us to talk together, to kind of get on the same page that we do want to vote. I don't care who you vote for. That is up to you. It's up to you, your life. What do you need? You know, and I don't know what you're looking for. But I do think um, that we need to make sure, just a second here. I do think we need to make sure we talk about voting and voters and what it all means. My goodness, this computer is really acting up. What happened is I got on a website for toys, and ever since I got on that website, it was the Macy's website, my computer has been acting up. Hold on just a second. I'm still here, but I want you to think about the elections, who you're going to vote for, and what is important on election day. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm back. And I'll tell you, we will never, ever be without dependency on paper. Hold it. Because these computers just are not real reliable when you really want them. Or if in some way they are um, infested by who knows what from who knows where. I've had my computer undergo several virus checks, says nothing got on there, no viruses. So it's just some sort of intrusive ads, I guess, that was put on at the toy site, and I'll have to get those off some way or another. Although I already did eliminate a lot of the stuff from my history. It may have put some trackers in there that I really didn't know about. So just be careful. Now I have a video saying about things you have to be careful about uh, during the holidays, and one of the things is your computer, because with the war and with a lot of people getting out of work and needing work, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be hacking into computers and so forth, and especially for people who have their bank account information on their computer and so forth. If you have money in the bank, I would even say invest in a cheap computer that you can use for holidays and times like that, because you don't want your main computer that has all of your information being used on a regular basis. It's just too easy for people to get into it and get information out. Now we have all of these people who are going to be fired from, or who were fired from, Twitter. A lot of these people are computer experts. They know everything about getting into and out of computers, what to do. Now they're out of work. Even though they're millionaires, they still want more work and they want more money. So I would be surprised if some of these people, just to fill some time or to make money or whatever, or just because they're angry, might start hacking into computers. And lots of people are losing their jobs over the holidays. Now, what's this? Something else popped up telling me to get on Facebook, but I don't want to get on Facebook. We'll close that. Anyway, so there are so many intrusive things coming onto computers that even having a little small memory computer that you use for holidays or times when there is disruption around the world that might have in some way attract people towards us or other people. It's good to use that instead of the one that has all of your information on. And so just be careful, because I have, by visiting the Macy's toy site, I also went to Walmart for a little bit, the Walmart Black Friday site. And, this is what you get. It's just very, very discouraging that, we have this insecurity. Actually, we're lucky to have our lines up because we saw what happened with the gas pipeline over in Europe. Someone went underwater and cut the gas pipeline. And all that stuff seems very bizarre to those of us who are landlubbers. We really aren't thinking about, well, let me go underwater in the deep ocean and start cutting lines. But there are people who do that stuff on a regular basis and who can be paid to go and disrupt things that we all depend on. So it's very important. And my main topic today is about voting, but I'm going to be talking about other things because I want to make sure we engage in these voting topics. I'm going to see if I can get my banner up, a banner up. Okay, this is my banner just saying about Mehmet Oz. If you are in Pennsylvania or related to somebody in Pennsylvania, you need to make sure you inform them that he is very wishy-washy about women's health, as many doctors are. You know, you think a doctor is your friend, but that is not always true. Some doctors are not your friends and they are political. They bring their own household political stuff into the office, and there you're sitting vulnerable. And if you don't watch out, you can be injured. You can be injured by having a doctor who is not really on your side. And as far as the ability to have abortions available, if there is a reason such as rape, incest, you were drugged, don't know if you had sex, but believe you had sex with who knows when. Well, all of that stuff goes if there are limitations on abortions. That means you might end up having the child of a hobo. You might have been running around the lake as this lady was the other day. She got up at 5 something a.m., went out, put on her jogging outfit, went out by the lake, started jogging, and a man came up to her and put his hands around her neck. She fell unconscious. Now, that usually only lasts for a couple seconds. But anyway, she fell unconscious. He ripped her clothes off enough he could rape her. And if she is pregnant, she needs the opportunity to have an abortion if she wants to have an abortion. Now, she might want to have this man's kid. Maybe she's desperate. Maybe she's been trying for years to get pregnant and couldn't find anyone who could impregnate her. Um, and maybe this hobo is impregnated her, and maybe she's going to say, great, I want this man's kid. Most likely, almost 100%, that's not what she's going to say. She's going to say, I got to get rid of this kid because it was a product of a rape. There was no consent. I don't know this person. I'm just going to have a lot of bad feelings toward the child because every second it's going to remind me that this child was a product of a rape. No one's going to want that. Child's not going to want that. Who wants to spend your life talking about being the product of a rape? These things are very emotional for kids. William and Harry are still dealing with a lot of emotional baggage that they got when their mother died and all of the situations they were put in during the grieving process. One of which was they were forced to walk behind their mother's casket in the funeral procession. Their father was very standoffish. There wasn't a lot of appropriate support for these kids. And Harry, now in his 40s, William in his 40s, they're both dealing still with the problems they got when their mother died. Prior to that time, they had idyllic lives. They were future king and spare. They were had lots of access to money, lots of access to all kinds of activities. They spent their free time flying off to ski resorts. Of course, paparazzi were there also. These kids had everything. And yet, one major problem has haunted them all the rest of their years, and they're still dealing with it. So, having a child that was started by a rape or somebody that was um, supposed to be, maybe you had consensual sex, but then they didn't use the condom as they had promised, and now you're stuck with a pregnancy that you didn't think was going to happen because you did not give consent for sex without a condom. You didn't know there was a trick. And now you want an abortion. Well, under Oz, you would go to a doctor and say, "Oh, doctor, I was raped," or whatever your story is. And, well, he would say, well, it has to be rape or incest. And if you gave consent for sex, even though he didn't use a condom, you still gave consent. That's a gray area. What's he going to do? So, are you going to get your abortion? Well, no, you're not going to get an abortion. Why aren't you getting an abortion? Because the doctor is afraid to lose his license. So, what they're going to say is, how do I know you were raped? How do I know you're not just somebody here just trying to get an abortion? So, no, they're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. They don't want to lose their license or get into a lot of legal problems that will cost them millions of dollars in legal fees because you walk into their office and say you want an abortion and claim you were raped. So you're going to go to the courts. Well, good luck with that because our courts are so backlogged, and you can see just by Trump how many cases he brings. Our courts are so backlogged, it'll take over a year for your case to be heard. Meghan Markle is in a lawsuit. Her sister filed a lawsuit against her. And then the judge said, okay, well, you need to redo your complaint or this case is going to be tossed. So the sister redid her complaint against Meghan. And that case is not going to go to a jury. And how long ago was that case filed? Probably, well over a year ago. And that's not going to go to a jury until the end of next year, 2023. So you can see how long it takes just to get to a jury. And so by now you have a kid sitting next to you, and there is no need to continue because the abortion decision is mute unless you just want to go for a court trial in order to try to change the law. But there's no way in the world you're going to get in and out of court quickly enough, no matter what you do or how you try to bring the case, because it just takes too long. Abortions, if they're going to be done, should be done extremely quickly because you don't want to advance the pregnancy, make the abortion more difficult, put more risk on the life of the mother, and also be dealing with a more advanced child. Abortions over 20 weeks, a lot of places people don't want to do them because with extraordinary medical treatment, the child can survive outside the womb. So if you have a person like Mehmet Oz in charge of your reproductive system, you are not going to have a choice, basically, about whether or not you have an abortion or whether you have any control over what's happening to you. You know, there are more and more men who are just desperate to have a baby. And a lot of them want to have a baby with somebody good looking. Maybe they have access to somebody that they consider overweight, or somebody they consider ugly, or somebody they consider in some other way unappealing to them. Maybe they have access to people of different races, but they want somebody of another race to have their baby. So if this becomes the way where all a person has to do is impregnate you, and then they end up with a baby, this is disastrous for anybody who's carrying ovaries with viable eggs and child producing years. And most people who are going to be raping you, a lot of times they wouldn't even know what reproductive years are anyway. They're going to be just attacking young people. Um, it's just terrible thought. So you have to take control of the whole problem. You have to say, if you do manage to grab me and tie me up, get me pregnant, that I do have the opportunity to have the child aborted. And if you have the wrong people in office, you are not going to be able to have the child aborted because it takes too long in the courts. Donald Trump has been avoiding disclosing his taxes since 2017. We're now in 2022. So you can see our courts are so slow, they are almost useless. And anyone who has to depend on a legal decision for anything is up the creek. You're not going to be able to get whatever it is you want done in time using the courts. So the best thing is to not put yourself in that predicament. Don't put yourself in that predicament. Don't put others in that predicament. When we had the isolation and home confinement because of COVID, when the outbreak was strong in 2020, 2021, there were a lot of people who couldn't get out of the house, a lot of kids who couldn't get out of the house. And there were a lot of kids who were molested and raped and abused in these confined spaces. It just was not a good situation. And there was no rescue. Everybody that was doing rescue normally, they were confined in their own home spaces. So if you were looking for a government building to be open, or you were looking for a government worker to come to your house and rescue you, there was nobody there. If you were being abused in your home, you were being abused in your home, and there really wasn't going to be anybody that was going to be able to rescue you. So we need to make sure that we preserve the ability to have abortion available if the situation is one that warrants an abortion. Now, this doesn't mean that people want abortions as a way of birth control. That's not what we are thinking about here. We have plenty of means of birth control and many of ways to prevent pregnancy, but people are not always in the position to make the decision or to have complete control. People might be too young. People might be too ignorant to know about pregnancy cycles. Some people are betting it all on some computer app. The computer app will say, okay, now it's safe for you to have unprotected sex because you are in this stage of your cycle. But that doesn't mean that it's true. And if they believe this stuff, then they go out and they will get pregnant just because the computer app was wrong. Now, if you're in a loving marriage, everything's going well, and you wanted to have a baby at some time, maybe that would be okay for you to depend on an app and be misled and then end up pregnant with a child. But if you are not in that situation, if for some reason a pregnancy is going to prevent you from being able to work and make money, or if the pregnancy is going to put the baby in harm, or many, many other reasons, it might be best to, at this time, consider a very early abortion, if that's what you want to do. But you need to have that available. If you sit and say, I have to have an abortion because of this, this, and this, and you have already gotten rid of that option because the person you elected, some stranger that you don't know, who hasn't spoken to you since the last election and won't speak to you again until the next election. Maybe they'll speak to you because some of these people, once they get in office, they never really come back to speak to people. They just use the money they generate all year to get reelected over and over again. So that person will be in charge of your home. They'll be in charge of who's living in your home, how many people are living in your home, how they got in your home, and that's ridiculous. You want to preserve your rights. You may never use that right. That right may be something you would never in your mind conceive that you could ever be in that position, and you just never can imagine that somebody's going to impregnate you or your family members or somebody you know, and you won't be able to get, um, and that you'll need an abortion. But those are things you don't want to bet on. You want to have the option there if it becomes necessary. It's not for everyday use. People do tend to try to abuse the abortions, but those have to be decided on a one-to-one basis between the patient and the doctor. Now, we have a lot of corrupt people in medicine. We have a lot of corrupt patients. But whatever is going on, as far as having somebody else make the decision who's never seen the patient, who doesn't know the doctor, who doesn't know the community, who doesn't understand the person's religious beliefs, who doesn't understand how this mess got started in the first place, to make that person the person making your decision, such a crucial decision, is to me ridiculous. Yes, we need to work on making it better so that people who are abusing the abortion for birth control, we need to try to improve on that. But we don't want to take away the fundamental right, because once you take away the fundamental right, then people can impose more and more restrictions on you, as we see over in Iran, where the young lady had worn her natural hair without a headscarf for a time, and she got used to it and said, "Well, the headscarf doesn't really mean anything. I'm still the same person inside. Mentally, I'm still the same person." But the men said, "You put on a headscarf because uh, if you're my woman, and no one else is going to look at you." Headscarves can hide a lot of things that will get the man in trouble. For instance, I became aware that some of the women who wear headscarves are abused by their spouses, but the abused the abuse can be hidden by the headscarves. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I have to go do um, a little something outside for a minute. I will be right back, and we'll talk about women and headscarves. Okay, I'm back. I have to water my lawn. And why do I have to water my lawn this Saturday morning? Because people in government told me, because they were elected, I don't know these people, but they told everybody in this area that they are elected to represent that people on this side of the street will spend every Saturday for the rest of their lives between the hours of this and this. That's the only time you can water your lawn. Now, maybe I want to go away on a Saturday. Maybe I don't want to stay here and water my lawn. Well, that's too bad. That's when my lawn can get watered, and I don't have a choice. Can I go and make arrangements and say, okay, we'll just put a little note on this meter that I can water Saturday or Sunday, one of the two, not both, but that's not an option. So that's why you don't want government in too many areas of your life making all your decisions. Allow yourself to make decisions for your own life. Don't allow the government to come in and just start making all of your decisions. So I guess my other option would be we just get rid of all of my greenery and put in, a lot of cement. Now that would cure the watering problem. Of course, that's not good for the environment, and it's not the kind of look that I really wanted. I didn't want my place to look like an industrial building. I wanted trees, I wanted grass, flowers. So anyway, I was going to restart. We're going to talk now about women and headscarves. Well, I thought that headscarves and the general garb that we often see in the Muslim countries was just for modesty. But it has a whole lot more connotations. One, it means you're a personal possession. You don't really exist. How many people can remember a person that they saw in full Muslim garb? Headscarf, big cloak. You can't even say, are they overweight? Are they this? Are they that? You can't say. They're all dressed alike and very hard to see their features. So this means who is really noticing you. The only people really noticing you and bonding with you are your family members. If you're married, your husband, your kids, because there you can take off all of that stuff and you can become a regular person. And that means you are much more of a possession. Now, many people like to be a possession. Many people want to be in the position where they don't have to worry about anything and they are considered to belong to this household, and this man is the leader of that household and the boss of the family. But it goes further than that. It goes much further than that. Because it means as long as you're desirable, things might go well. But if the person has a bad temper or has other problems, mental problems, you can become a victim of sexual abuse. You can become a victim of domestic violence. and it's not seen because your body's covered. It's not reported because you're in fear for your life or the lives of your kid or family members. And so you are stressed. You have to be stressed in that kind of environment. Sure, initially when things are going well, you're probably not that stressed, but if you cross the line, if you cross the line, the person with the power can really make you suffer for whatever they want you to make you suffer for. If you go missing for a period of time, very few people are going to miss you because they really don't see you. You are sort of the invisible person. So there's a lot that goes on, and people aren't bonding with the women outside because, it is disrespectful. Just like in the United States, people feel it's very disrespectful if you are um, too close to a man's wife or a man who has claimed somebody that person to that girlfriend. And that even goes for homosexual relationships, the same feelings. And sometimes it can even be more dramatic. The things I've seen happen to a partner in domestic violence with jealousy or anger can be as horrifying or more horrifying than a lot of the cases I see in um, male female relationships. But that often doesn't get discussed in the media. So what was I talking about? I was talking about headscarves. So what I came to understand is not only about the invisibility of women, the domestic violence, the sexual abuse, there is a torture that goes on with these women that is not discussed. A lot of men don't beat the woman around the face because that face is out. But where you'll see the marks a lot of times is on the head. They pull out the hair of the women. There are bruises on the scalp. But no one ever asks these women to take off their headscarves because they proclaim that it is a humiliation for somebody to see their scalp. So they don't take it off. And so people do not see that the woman is being battered if she doesn't obey. So headscarves are a big problem, especially when they are used as a control mechanism against people. And again, this is a place where women gave up their power. And once they gave it up, it got stronger and stronger and stronger to the point now where they can be arrested for not wearing a headscarf. They can then be taken into the police department and beaten up, especially about the head, to the point where they go unconscious and die and never reveal the cause of the death. There is no autopsy done. So this is what happens when you lose your power. You consent to losing your power again and again. The law becomes stronger and stronger. Your children grow up and they say they have never heard of abortion in their country. And at that point, it's very difficult, if not impossible, because the new generation is growing up with the rules of the past, the rules that were started by you and me when we elected people who wanted to restrict our rules. If they say there's going to be no abortion for women, Should there be something done to men so that they can become infertile? Maybe men should, it's harder to make somebody do something. So to say a man should be required to have some sort of injection that would make him not be able to reproduce would be very difficult. You just can't inject people against their will. So very difficult, but this is where we are. Are we going to say we're losing this today? We'll lose this right for the next 4 years, and then for the next 8 years, and then for the next 12 years. And now everybody that's 12 years old has never heard of women being able to go in and get an abortion. And then the cycle starts. How do you ever get that right back? How do you ever get that right back? Certain rights, once given up, are lost forever. And you have to be very careful who is controlling your ability to have babies. Who is controlling your ability to have babies. And yet, as we see with our courts, it's unequal justice. As you and I are very vulnerable to the sayings of the court, the declarations of the court, others totally ignore it. It doesn't mean anything. You're going to find me, uh, let me see, I make 2 million from drug sales, and you're going to find me $150,000. Well, they're willing to do that. The average person can't do that and doesn't want to do that. They don't want to pay $150,000 in fines, and they aren't going to make $200,000. I mean, they aren't going to make $2 million in illegal income, which is now very easy for them because it's all been systematically arranged. So it's not like starting a new business. These are old businesses. The income's easy to get and the fines are easy to pay. You're going to find me for using my home as a place for drugs and prostitution. Well, let me use a boat. Let me use a plane. Let me use an island. There are ways around all these laws for people who can afford it or who can find enough people to go in with them financially to start some sort of illegal scam. You have to be careful about the rights you give up. And that's why elections are so important. People you don't know, who never talked to you in the past, who never came by and shook your hand, sat in your house, talked about your problems, now they want to come and they want to intrude in your personal business. They want to say how your reproductive errors, things that went wrong. Oops, how did that happen? Things that you are affected by personally that has absolutely no effect on them. The minute your conversation stops, they've forgotten totally about you. But yet they're going to vote on something that affects you in your house, with your family. It's going to affect your job, your career, your vacation choices, your money, your health care, everything. How you spend your time. Time is the most important thing. And yet, somebody else is going to affect how you spend your time. Some people have a long time. We see people who live to be 96 and 87 and 76 and so forth. But some people have a very short time. Time is even more important. They're dying at 22. They're dying at uh, 16. They're dying in their 30s or 40s. Time is not something you can just laugh at. Don't talk to me about time. We have a lot of time. Not everybody has a lot of time. And they can decide in their own lives how important time is and how they want to spend their time. And I don't think that we should elect people who want to tell us how to spend our time, how to spend our money, how much time we have to spend in the courts. Because if you have a baby with a homeless person who strangled you, knocked you unconscious, raped you, created a baby, you can better believe he's going to show up in court and say to the court, to the judge, hey, that's half my baby. I want time with that child. I want to have every other weekend with that child. I may even want some support from the mother for having this child with me. You never know. Those courts go crazy. The courts are just crazy. Halls of injustice. They are halls of injustice. And we see that clearly almost every day with how the courts are failing us, how the courts are rigged, how the courts are political. They're not neutral. They're not using common sense. They're often not advocating for you. Judges are elected in many cases, in most cases. Judges in your area are elected, and so they want to do what they think the populace wants done. And that can be here and there. You can't depend on a judge. Same with the DA, district attorney. District attorney is elected. The district attorney's feelings are going to vary. Sometimes this way, sometimes that way, according to the election cycle, according to what's happening. Okay, I'm going to take a little break and I will be right back. I'm back. Okay. So we were talking about abortion, and we were talking about other people making that decision for you. Other people saying you should or must have this baby, even if you were raped. So you were raped by a homeless man who wants to impregnate you. He's been watching you run around the lake for 3 days, and he says, I'm going to choke her out, knock her out, hit her with a bat, whatever, impregnate her, and then I'll have a baby with her, and I will be in her life for 18 years at least. So what happens if the baby is found to have some sort of genetic problem? Say they find that the baby isn't developing normally, she's going, she or he is going to have a problem that is going to need a lot of care at home, and you are not given permission to terminate the baby. What happens? The homeless man says, I'll take the baby if she doesn't want it. It sends a chill up your spine. Thought of giving that rapist, that homeless rapist, that violent man, a baby. But yet, you're young. You don't want that man's baby. You want to work. You want to earn money. You want to be able to live your life. And now you have a child that's being born who's going to require maybe oxygen, maybe frequent doctor visits, maybe special types of furniture, or might have periodic seizures, or maybe it will be born without some appendage, maybe won't have legs or won't have arms, or maybe won't have legs or arms, or might be blind. Who knows what? Babies come out all kinds of ways. They don't come out as all of them as big, beautiful babies like you see in the pictures in the wonderful motherhood magazines. Babies come out in all kinds of ways. And once they come out, they are entitled to full benefits, full care. That might mean people have to come in your house who are therapists, psychologists, um, occupational trainers. The baby might need prolonged diaper usage, maybe for a lifetime even, who knows? These are some of the things that actually happen when you have a baby. If the baby is out of love, mothers, if they don't abort it, knowing what's going to what has developed, and they decide to keep the baby, they'll try to give that baby all the love they can. But, if you're in a marriage and you were raped by the homeless man and you're having the homeless man's baby, even if the baby's healthy, your husband is probably going to leave you because he doesn't want to raise that baby. And if you are um, in any type of relationship and the baby is going to be deformed or otherwise handicapped, more than likely your partner will leave you because not his baby, and the baby is not a perfect baby. So babies are complicated. This is not an easy subject. And I think as we put it into clips here and there, the pros and cons of abortion, one side with a sign up, I'm pro abortion. Well, pro abortion means I want to have abortion available if the need arises. It doesn't mean they want easy abortions, it just means the option has to be there. And then the other side says no abortion. Well, that's more concrete. You can see no means none, non-abortion, non-abortions, no abortions. So you understand that easier. Pro-abortion is harder to think. Some people think it means, oh yeah, I want everybody to be able to get an abortion as often as they want, whenever they want. But that's not really what pro-abortion is. It means I want to have abortions available reasonably to mothers and families for some of the reasons I've already talked about. So don't put people in office who are limiting your rights and privileges and options. Your life is short, and many people don't think women die during pregnancy. They do die during pregnancy today. Yes, they die. They can become handicapped during a pregnancy trying to deliver. So these are things people don't think about. And if you don't think about all of the things, the possibilities, and you just say, this group is saying this group is saying that, I'm going to go with that group. Well, you're not using your common sense, you're not thinking, and like I said, you start giving up your rights, you won't get them back. You may get them back, you might not. Often you don't get them back because people like to control. People like to control women. In various countries, most people want to control women. In some countries, people who are higher up want to control women and men. But if they're controlling women and men, they're controlling women even more. And they're also controlling children because children have even less of a say as to what's going on. There's also the baby selling. Now, a lot of people want no abortions because babies are a business, and people don't often think of that. But babies are a business as far as um, the embryos that are frozen, those are sold by businesses who are in charge of the embryos. Because it's very easy for a person who's running a fertility center to say, oh, your embryos were lost or they died or they're not fertile, but maybe they were sold. Maybe they were already sold, and that your child is now growing up in some other part of the world doing who knows what. Some people like to use embryos just to have a child, they're infertile. Some people want to have an American child born in the United States. Some people want to have a child of a different race for various reasons. And I'll never forget the one time I was watching TV and this news reporter was talking to a family, a man, a woman, and a child. And the child was seemed very happy and attached to the man, and the wife was sitting there. She didn't look really happy, but she was quiet. But you could see her eyes shifting down and then over to the man and then down. And what was odd about the situation was this was a Middle Eastern Muslim couple. And the child they were holding, or should I say that the man was holding, was a white child. And so the question is, did he adopt a white child? Did he find a white child? Where did this white child come from? And what's going on in that household? I don't know. And the person who was interviewing the couple never made any reference to the fact that the child was obviously not a child that had been born by them. It was a foreign child. So I was watching this and I was wondering, why didn't the woman bring up, maybe she already knew an answer, adequate answer or not, I don't know. But maybe that's why she never said anything. But for me, as a viewer, I was left wondering what is going on with this child. Well, the child by now is, of course, an adult. That was many years ago that I saw that on television. And it is the other side of babies. It is the other side, and it's a big side. Somebody has to care not only about the pregnancy, but they also have to care about the baby and the children and the adults that they become. Wearing a burqa and a headscarf tends to hide who is under all of that garb. You don't know if you're speaking to somebody who is Middle Eastern and Muslim or somebody who looks more like a Swedish person and under all that garb. Now, one of the differences with the Muslim countries is that when you get to one of those countries, you are you have your passport taken. They take your passport, and if you're a child, of course, you're not given a passport, and you are restricted in that country for as long as they want you in that country. And what they do is, and I learned of this long time ago, what they would do with people who wanted to be in the fashion industry, who wanted to be models, and so forth. And they would say, "Oh, please come to um, this country, and we will pay you a lot of money to come and do a show, maybe a fashion show, maybe dancing and singing, whatever." And so they would get to the country and find, oh, you can't get out. You can't get out of the country. They have your passports and you are unable to go. There was a famous, I'm blanking on who it was, very famous artist, a singer, a man this happened to. He was asked to come to a country and perform his hits, and he's big. And when he was finished with the show, he was told he couldn't leave. So knew he was in a precarious position, and I mean, they have his passport. He can't leave because they don't want him to leave. And what's he going to do? So he kept doing more shows. You know, I don't know how much he ever got paid, if he ever got paid at all. But I'm sure if he got paid, it was much less than he was probably promised. He was just happy to get out of the country. So these countries, when you go to various countries, you have to be very, very careful of who's bringing you into the country and how are you getting out of the country. Because if you come in and they take your passport, you could be up the creek. And that's how a lot of these people that you see enslaved over in Dubai and other places get hooked. They come from a poor family. The family sends the person, male or female, out to work. The passport is confiscated, and they find that they're left with many years of work in bad conditions, worsening conditions, and they can't get out because they can't get access to a passport. So when you go to Dubai, you'll see people a lot of people have housekeepers, they have drivers, they have baby caretakers, all kinds of people. Why? Because they can't get out of the country. If they could leave, they would, but they can't get out. I mean, money's always a factor. If you underpay people so that they financially can't get out, that's one problem. But if you take their passport, that's another problem that they probably won't be able to get over. Hold on just a second. Take my position. So I hope that I have, in some way, given you some things to think about as to why you need to be careful of how you vote. If you take a look at the people who are in Congress, it is a scary bunch. And it's unbelievable that some of these people can actually get elected. But they get in there, they get a lot of power, they get separated from the rest of the world. They're voting on their own feelings, not the feelings of the community. They really don't care what the women want. As a majority in the community that they represent, they're coming in and saying, I want this, I want that. And if they get it, it's going to affect you in real life. I've got a cough from all this talking. I hope you're taking your vitamin C, vitamin D, iron, vitamins A and B, E. Want to make sure. Oh, and your zinc. And your zinc. You want to be proactive. You want to make sure that you're healthy when you get attacked by the virus. so that you can fight it off more easily. With the government showing that it is, very political, it makes you much more adverse to getting these shots because if people were neutral and honest, you probably would fall into line much more easily. But with everything politicized, with people seeing you as a Democrat or Republican and not as an individual who can choose either side, it makes you much more afraid to allow people to control your life, not only through elections, but through medical care. Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson and Johnson received millions and millions, billions of dollars of American money during COVID in 2020, 2021. Our money, free. They just gave it to them. They said, fix this and try to find a shot, a vaccine that can help people, or anything that can help people better their immune system so they can resist the virus and we can reduce the death rate. These people made tons of money with that vaccine. The government bought it up. They bought it all up at a good price. After giving them the money to develop it, then the government paid to buy it, and other countries paid to buy it and use it. And the owners of the companies had a windfall, many windfalls of money from the outbreak of COVID. Never once has anyone asked those companies or have any of those companies volunteered to return some of the money that they were given in order to develop a vaccine or any kind of treatment. So it makes it all very untrustworthy. You can see the greed, the corruption of the medical companies. You can see the greed, dishonesty, and the politicians. And they ask you again to get a vaccine, and that is a hard decision. Everyone has to make that for themselves. Because if you get COVID and die, only the people who know you and who are close to you are going to be really affected. And most of them won't be affected too long. As we can see by the death of the Queen, that was fairly quickly um, gotten past, even though she had been working for 70 years. So you have to be careful. You have to be very, very careful. So, anyone calling in? Don't have any callers in right now. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention about this Mehmet Oz race that really, really concerns me, and I'm shocked that Oz would even request that a person divulge to the public, everyone in the world, his medical records. I'll tell you, I'm healthy. I wouldn't divulge my medical records. And if I had anything in my past, all the kinds of stuff that people can find out through your medical records. And Oz, as a physician, and his friends who are physicians can easily crack into a person's medical record and find out additional information. Never, ever, ever would I divulge or require someone divulge their medical record. It is unconscionable. It is the most un-American thing you can do. Medical records are sacred, except if you go into a lawsuit. Now, if you sue your physician for something, your physician's going to pull out your medical records and talk about your health. But almost no other reason. Medicare, Medicaid, any insurance company that's paying for your health care will have access to your health records because they'll want to know that they're not being scammed, that you actually came in, you had some kind of treatment. Was the treatment appropriate? They don't want to be paying for a bunch of scammers. But normally your medical record is sacred to you. Only you and your physician. The only time I've seen it's a legal document, and a doctor has to keep those records for a certain number of years. I think it's 7, um, just in case they're sued. And so they have to keep them so that if they're sued, they can use them in court. So I was shocked when Donald Trump sent his henchmen in to his doctor's office and they bogarted their way past the receptionist, went into the doctor's office, took Donald Trump's medical records, and the doctor said they took some other records too, and left. And he never said anything. I mean, other than a minor complaint to the news media, he never filed any kind of complaint against Donald Trump, which I think is ridiculous. That's very scary. It's very scary that Donald Trump would do that. And it's very scary that Mehmet Oz, who has been in the medical field for quite a while, would demand, because he wants a job in Congress. And to get the job, he wants to demand that the other applicant for the job shows his medical records. Dr. Oz says he showed his medical records. Yeah, but he probably got them uh, altered by one of his friends who's a doctor. I mean, he knows tons of doctors, and anyone he might very easily, I probably wouldn't have to ask more than 1 or 2 people before he would find somebody who would be more than willing to give him a clean bill of health, say he's in great shape. But the guy he's running against is not in the medical field. He doesn't know a bunch of doctors who would do that. And you can't compete with somebody who's going to be unlawful in their revelation of their records and expect you to be honest in yours. Plus, that should never be a job requirement. I don't think anybody wants to, employers would love it. So, you come in, you want to be a receptionist, and so they would ask you your medical records. And if you had a boss like Harvey Weinstein, well, he would ask you your medical records because he wanted to make sure that you didn't have HIV or hepatitis or something that could be transmitted with close personal contact. But no one should have to disclose their medical records. Otherwise, people would never hire people with potential health problems. A job, a business gets insurance for its employees. The insurance rates go up the more the employees get sick. So employers have an incentive not to hire people who have any kind of health problem, any kind of health problem. So if you were forced to show your medical records for a job and they saw you had hepatitis C, they would say, I don't think I want that. Hep- Liver transplants are very expensive. We don't want that on our insurance record. We're not going to hire you. They got your medical record and saw that you had two babies. They might say, well, she had two. She probably wants a third or a fourth, and we don't want her out for pregnancies. And so we won't hire her because we don't want to get involved with her being pregnant. Okay, so I've been on for an hour and a half, and I think because my throat is a little sore from talking, I'm going to give it a rest. I will do another live later, and I hope you'll join me. In meantime, be safe, be good, be kind, show some love to those who are around you, and take care. Please like and subscribe. Bye.